Judy has woven a most engaging and vibrant tale. A silver tea service refused to have its light dimmed. It demanded polishing. But with the revelation of the enigmatic inscription came a mystery. And some say mystery is the birthplace of curiosity. Curiosity fired this yearning for true stories about her past and how that affects her today and most likely her tomorrow. She had questions that demanded answers, and she took on the challenge of a family memoir. And the honesty and the unflinching eye that Judy brings is what makes this book truly engaging. What you will find is the ability to delve into a complex, intriguing, beautifully written tale that shows how a search for truth can yield unexpected outcomes.
Judy came on a writing retreat with me in Fiji in 2014 at a time when I was interested in helping other people to write their stories. I actually retrieved the email that we had from 2014, and I asked Judy, what is this about? What is this story about? And she said, it's a story about one of my ancestors. Research has led me deeper and deeper, and I now find myself trying to solve a 100-year-old mystery that appears to have been swept under the carpet by subsequent generations. As I've proceeded into research, I've discovered more and more fascinating stuff, and I'm no longer sure who or what it should be about. My original intention was to solve and write about the mysterious downfall of my great-grandfather. I now have potentially worthy material that would take me 50 years to write. Well, that was a promising start, of course. I also have another email from January the 6th in 2014 where Judy writes, never having done anything to develop whatever capacity I might have for writing or having shown anyone much of anything I've written, I feel like I'm stripping myself naked in the middle of George Street. It's quite traumatic, to my surprise, now that it comes to it. It was in Fiji where I started to talk to Judy about this heirloom that she had, which had just sort of found its way into her life. There it was, sitting there amongst the things that we inherit from our family, and it was a slight annoyance, you know, bloody silverware. And I think in every family there is that one poor schmuck who ends up having to really honor the stories and the silences that that family carries. The fact is that we're all sort of threaded into the stories that have come before us, whether we know them or not. And sometimes we're lucky enough to have a clue, like a family heirloom with a kind of an intriguing inscription that gives us a little doorway. It offers us a way in to start asking questions. And so Judy came thinking that she really was writing about her ancestors. Now, the thing about memoir is that you're never writing about ancestors, you're writing about yourself. You just don't know it yet. I understood very soon in Fiji that really what Judy was looking for was answers to things that had been lost. And that there were echoes in her own life of things that had been lost that she needed to find a place for. And that, if there is anything any of us does with our lives, to go back and to retrieve what has been lost and to honor what has sort of fallen by the wayside, that is the life that is worth living. Do you feel like you have, in the writing of this book, that you have finished something that was passed down to you from some ancestors? And can you say what you think that might be?
Yes. I do feel that I have solved the mystery, which was one thing that was the thing at the beginning, in the early days that you were talking about, but ultimately turned out to not be the thing. It was a thing, and it drew me along a journey that I could never have foreseen, and discoveries I could never have foreseen. So that part of the history of my family, which I really had no idea about before I embarked on this research. I do feel a sense of completion and satisfaction with having completed that. However, my research has raised another whole raft of questions about still more distant parts of my heritage that I find fascinating and ironic in the light of history.
We're understanding from epigenetics that there is so much inheritance that we have that is silent, that is not understood, and that some of the mysteries of our own personality, the things that we can be curious about, can be solved by not doing so much self-help as much as looking back and understanding what we have inherited, what has been handed down to us, whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not. It's kind of an inheritance, and there is a way in which that just has to be honored, and writing is such a profound way of grappling with it. So let's talk a little bit about the writing, Judy, because when you came to Fiji those 5.5 years ago, you already had 2 careers. You still have another career, and I'm quite intrigued to find out how you have managed to become a writer and an author in the space of all that. But can you tell us a little bit about the journey of becoming a writer and how that was for you, some of the highs and lows of that journey, but trying to make me not seem like such a bitch.
She's firm. She doesn't take any nonsense, and sometimes that's what you need. It's been very, very valuable to have that input from someone who is so much more experienced than I am at the whole art and craft of writing. So not just about the technical part of writing, but about the journey of writing. It really wasn't my intention. It was this thing over there that really set me going on it, and it was losing my parents, one and then the other, and being lumbered with an extraordinary amount of, well, I would say crap, but it didn't end up that way, but it seemed that way at the time. Boxes and boxes and piles of things. The process of going through the things, sifting through, and I think that there are many tales, Jungian tales, even fairy tales about sorting and sifting through grain, and the old hag makes the young girl sift through an impossible mound of grain or something like that, and some amazing thing comes out of it. It felt a bit like that.
What about some of the emotional breakthroughs, Judy? Some of the emotional breakthroughs for you in the writing of this book. I mean, do you still feel like you're stripping yourself naked on George Street?
Yes, I do. One of the very last things that I actually did put in the book, which you haven't even seen, it was something that I found really, really difficult. There was an emotional journey that as long as I had kind of sat on those things, it wasn't a complete journey.
That is one of the gifts that you will be giving to people in the reading of this book, is to have laid yourself open like that. And it's not about being an exhibitionist, because, I mean, memoir is so much about choosing what you are writing about. You think very carefully about why you're including this, the importance of this to the story you're telling, and the impact that it will have on a reader. But what is so interesting about the objects that we choose to keep as part of our sense of self is that it's not so much the object, but it's our relationship with the object and what that object means. I mean, in writing, we use objects, we use things as symbols, and those symbols absorb meaning, and they hold emotion that can then be used to enrich the storytelling, so that an object can stand for something. It can stand for grief, it can stand for love, it can stand for regret. And so, Judy, what would you say this object, now that we know that this book is actually not about the Silver Tea Service, this is about your relationship with the Silver Tea Service and what it means. What does it represent to you?
It gave me a portal to a whole area of heritage, some of it appalling, calling. And some of it, well, I have to wait for my second book. Some of it really, who knew? And so I feel that that's its meaning primarily to me is, first of all, it has honored the story that my mother always said she would write about her grandfather, and she never did. And it's a portal to a whole raft of feelings, not good feelings, that arose from her inability to do what she said she would do. But of course, as you said before, once you start writing and you start digging, things start rising up that you haven't looked at either by choice or just circumstance for a very long time, and you start to realize how important it is to pull those things up into the light and have a look at them.